What's up and welcome back. I'm John Stark from MacMovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic, and today this is a recap of The Penguin, Season 1, Episode 6. And we're back, we're in Gotham, and my mind is still blown that this is a series about the Penguin of all Bat villains, and it's this good. Like, if you had told little me, who just watched like Danny DeVito and Batman Returns, and be like, one day this will be an epic HBO miniseries, I'd be like, what? That guy with the fish? Like, you serious? Future me? No, I'm really serious. Still has audio description. It's still excellent. It's International Digital Center. Good God. Written by Dakota Green, narrated by Red Leach, which you can watch if you're on Max. And I am still loving the show. I love how this is sort of the balance. This is the this episode's like, this series is like a pendulum that's swinging. In one way we go one way last episode, and then we go back this way this episode. Last episode we saw the Gigante family rise. She went in that meeting. We lost Johnny, and she told a whole bunch of people who the world had never really, they were not naturally made men, they were just members of the family before. She gave them money, and she said, in the Gigante family, basically you're made. This is how you get there. You stick with me, and it's like, I know you, and you are part of my family. And then she goes and basically combines with the last remaining. She goes to the cabin in the woods, and it's not that kind of cabin in the woods. But we saw her have that last meeting where she's like, so, do we do this? That was kind of where it left us. Then we open up, and he's like in the house, and he's like making breakfast or something, or dinner. I don't know. It was food. There was some yogurt involved, which to me is a breakfast item, but then there were some other things that felt very dinner type. So could be either way. But yeah, he's just out there cooking. Moroni, just cooking in her kitchen. And she's like, some fugitives stay in their rooms and stuff like that. She makes some comment. And he also talks about how he's like, my wife taught me to make this recipe, and so I could pass it down to generations. Of course, his son's dead, so he can't pass it down. And he mentions when he gives her the food, this is the way his son liked it. And she is nice to say, oh, he was right. It's great. It's better without yogurt. And that was a really nice moment. I was like, this is compelling shit. And this is nice shit. And this is people being nice to each other. This is what I was missing. A couple days ago, I reviewed Netflix's new series, Beauty in Black, which is dark, and everybody is having the worst life ever. And everyone is like the worst representation of a human being. And it's like all bad guys. And like, there's one person who you're hoping like crawls out of the shit, but there's so much of it. And it's so dark and so depressing. And I was like, even with that, there has to be levels. You know what I'm saying? There have to be characters who like, technically that person is bad, but there are levels to these characters. That's what makes it compelling, is that you find yourself enjoying or liking somebody who is a bad person, who has killed people, who normally you would be wanting Batman to come in and be like, yeah, fuck him up, Batman. But you don't in the Penguin. Like, we're in a completely different place where I'm like, I don't need Batman in this show. Like, if he popped up now, it'd be a shitty cameo, and I'd be like, God, I hate this. I'd be so disappointed. But it's just something that we don't need. But everybody here there isn't a good guy here. There isn't there are just levels. Everybody here is technically a criminal. So when you have a little moment here about there are two former feuding families and they're sitting down having a meal, literally breaking bread, uh, that's a great scene. And it didn't depress the hell out of me. And it actually, there were little just sort of niceties that were happening between the two of them, between two people who were former rivals. And it continues throughout the episode. Sophia continues to have levels to her. She's trying to figure out how to hit Oz, and she eventually figures about Eve. So she has this conversation with Eve later on, which is really compelling because you're like, she's gonna kill Eve. Eve's dead, and but it plays in such an interesting way that really gives Sophia more depth as a character. And my favorite part of that was um, when they bring up the hangman, and Eve just says, "You're not the hangman, are you?" You know, like she just knows. She's like, "You're not. That's not you. That's not who you are." Um, and again, it gives Kristen Milioti just another small moment to God. She's got to win the fucking Emmy this year. I don't even know. I don't know what's happening. I don't know what's coming in the next part of the year. I don't know what could possibly happen that would change my statement on Kristen Milioti winning the Emmy, because I think she's terrific here. Um, and I would have, if you had asked me, did I think she had this performance in her? I would have said no. There's nothing really previously. She's had some good stuff, but most of it has been comedic. Uh, Not necessarily stuff that I would throw an Emmy at, but maybe like a nomination or something like that. But this is like on a different level. This is like when people watched that guy from Scary Movie in uh, Red Rocket, and they were like, he can act? Like, let's be honest, most of us knew him from Scary Movie. Really didn't notice the rest of his film career. Maybe you saw him in like something else, but he really hadn't been ever given a role that would require him to act. Suddenly he gets one, and everybody's like, awards, give him awards. Or Monique and Precious, we're like, oh my god, what? Sometimes you get those moments, and I'm not gonna say Kristen Milioti is quite on that level, but this is quite a transformative performance for her in terms of the kinds of offers she's going to get after the Penguin. It's going to be totally different for her. Her world is completely different now. It's changed. She'll never work in comedy again. She'll just be, you know, um, she's going to get some heavy dramatic work. So I love what they did with her this episode. I love that she's taken the power away from her therapist. Like, he's the one that's tied up on a chair and she's using him for sex, and that's it. You know, she's the one, she won't even give him eye contact as he leaves. Like, she's denying him that. For Julian, for Shades of all people. That'd been nice if she had put a pair of sunglasses on him, by the way, on the way out the door. She just, it's just because we all know him, Shades. A lot of people, or from Sons of Anarchy, give him that and then like a biker jacket, you know, sunglasses and a biker jacket. Reference all of Theo Rossi's former roles in one. And on the other side of it, we see Penguin, who is basically doing what Sophia just did in the last episode, which is creating a family. He has obviously there's a little bit of a time jump because he suddenly has more mushrooms, which don't necessarily propagate that fast overnight. So he now has like a whole distribution thing, and he's set up with all these other gangs, and he now has a network, and he's running the show, and they have a way to distribute bliss all over the place. And by the end of the episode, you see him, and he's pulled all of these heads of these rival gangs together, and he said, you know, you're sitting here and it's us versus these two families who don't even know your names. You know, to them, you know, there's a lot of about like looking down, and how they don't even look down. They've got their noses turned up in this episode, about people who, you know, you just think you can squash them easily because they're squashable, because they're poor, because they didn't come from your we and it's something that Sophia touches on too, with the idea of Johnny being the only made man at the table. Well, he's made simply because of birth, not because he's the baddest gangster in that room. It's not like you reach a certain kill count and you're like, well, made. you know, uh, well, he got his 10th. He's now a made man. That's not how it works. Um, so Penguin is offering them the same thing. He's saying, if we stop bitching at each other and we team up, it will be unstoppable. And he's kind of right, because if he's got all of the other gangs, Maroney's lost a lot of people, and Sophia killed like the rest of her family. These are two people who can't possibly have giant infrastructures anymore because of the war against them. But one of the things Penguin wasn't doing was going after all these small gangs along the way. So even though they're small and they probably don't have the infrastructure that the two mega crime families had in Gotham, he's now gotten a fuckload of them to team up. So I think that's interesting, and that's compelling. That's worth something. I love that, and he does like the most basic thing you could do. The letting people know that you're one of the guys. He cracks open a beer, you know, and then they pass around beers, and basically you're in. If you open the beer and you have a beer with Oz, you're in. And I'm like, this is the most blue collar way to recruit everybody. I love it. I love that Oz reminds people of where he came from. No toasting champagne. He's sitting on the bed of a fucking pickup truck with a can of beer. I'm like, what is happening in Gotham? What is life anymore? Somebody thought of that, and they were like, what's a great way to just show that he's an everyman? I'm like, I don't know. I watch a lot of country music videos, and they're always drinking beer in pickup trucks. Oh, we'll put that in Gotham. We want a pickup truck and beer, and yeah, why not? All right. How? In this scene? Oh, okay. Because it totally works. It's like in some instances it feels out of place, because you're like, well, he's a gangster. Would he really be in the bed of a truck? How much beer do we think Oz actually drinks? Really, how much beer do we think any of those guys drink? I mean, they are the heads of their gangs, so they're probably onto liquor. It's probably their underlings who are still getting the cans of beer, but everybody does it. It's just such a simple way of saying we're regular folk, and we agree. We concur, sir. And I really love that part of the episode. The other part of the episode that was really heartbreaking was watching Ma Cobble, Ma Cobb, Ma Pot. She was having a hard time. She's in the bathtub, and she's been there for a while, and Oz comes and finds her and helps her out, and she's like, because she keeps losing her memory, and she asks Oz and makes Oz promise to kill her, which could come at some point, because she's tired of having these in and out moments. She's like, I don't want to be one of those ladies who sits there and just shits herself all day long. So if I lose my dignity, what else do I have? I've got nothing left. So obviously heartbreaking. And again, that's what I'm talking about, like with the villain episodes. It's like Oz is a villain. He just set somebody on fire in the previous episode, but these are levels, and this is how you create and you care about people and for characters, and you're like, wow, this really sucks for that guy who kills people. This is for the Batman villain that normally we would want Batman to come in and punch him in the face right now, but this is the narrative we're being given. So the complexities and the levels of this is how you do darkness. This is what doing a series full of nothing but shitty people actually looks like. When you make compelling drama, it doesn't mean shitty people are shitty all the time, all day, every day, and that makes for great television. This is what makes for great television, compelling television. So to give him that level and to see him struggling because he's trying to give his mom at least some electricity, and he can't get the generator going. And then so he goes and basically beats up a member of City Hall. And, well, electricity comes on. So, and we see we see at the end of it, uh, the dancing at the end, and we're left with that cliffhanger of what is Sophia going to do, because she's found them. She gets the clue from Eve, and she knows, where they are by the zoo. And it's funny, she's just got a crowbar, by the way. It's like, I love that she thought like she was gonna feature like no resistance in this whole thing. She just assumed I can just walk in with a crowbar. I don't need a gun. Crowbar's fine, because I don't think she's like necessarily great at hand-to-hand combat. Uh, so I feel like if she runs into a room with a crowbar and somebody has a gun, she loses. So we'll see how that plays out. Um, is she gonna kill off two people? Is she gonna kill off one? We did see, meanwhile, the third lead in this whole thing, whose name is clearly escaping me, by the way, because I keep avoiding it. He is presented with the opportunity to, have a lot of really meaningful conversations with Oz, but then at the same time, he's got that funker that we saw in the neighborhood that even the audio description was pointing out, like he was watching him, as the guy that he boosted the rims for, or was running that little street gang earlier. And he's noticed, and he's wondering, where you get the money from? Those look like new shoes. I want them in. And it comes to a point where, he tries to tell Oz, and he's like, and he realizes Oz has got enough shit on his plate. So he's like, nah, I can handle it. And he tries paying the guy off. And he's like, listen, I can't bring you in on the operation, but I can give you money. And he's like, you think you can just buy me off? No. I want to, I'm going to meet your guy, So basically that dude oversteps and he gets popped. But it's his first kill. And so we get that too. The sort of like, oh shit, I killed somebody finally. I've gone over the line that I can never go back. The little him finding the blood on his shoe part was sort of interesting, how he's trying to get the blood off of his new shoe. And we just literally found out it's a new shoe too. So he didn't have as nearly strong of a narrative this episode, because his was just kind of like this. It was just this one milestone for him. The other stuff was more compelling to watch Sophia like sort of make her way through and getting to Oz. I love that she talks to drag queens, and the drag queens are like, I don't know who Eve is. And then she finds out that, really Eve, like all of her people wouldn't give her up. And Eve actually orchestrated getting Sophia to her, and the person who goes down for the information, Eve sent her, because Eve has always had people's back before, and she's earned this trust, and between the working women of Gotham, she has earned them willing to stand up to Sophia and to say, no, I don't know what that is. I'm sorry, I can't help you. Which is something I think that Sophia admires, which is one of the reasons Eve doesn't die in this episode, is Sophia looks at it and goes, you know what? I don't need to do this. And I honestly don't think Oz would care. I think you're right. Probably pointless. So, great episode. I still love the Penguin. I think this series is excellent. Lots of little episodes, and a great way to show levels when talking about villains, instead of just presenting them as just constant shit. Now that I've seen what that looks like, and I hated it, did 2 episodes and I was out. I was like, man, this is such a fucking depressing show. You can have levels, and the Penguin realizes that. And that's what makes these characters so compelling, is that you end up rooting for people who have done terrible things, and you've watched them do terrible things, but they have levels to them that really bring out um, and somehow create heroes in a show where there are none, that create protagonists that give us that hero's journey where we shouldn't have one because there isn't a good guy here. So it sort of redefines what the hero's journey is, and who is the hero here. Is it Sophia or is it Penguin? Who's the good guy? Who's the bad guy? Very sort of moral dilemma things. The show's much better written than I think anybody would ever give it credit for, being a DC property, The Penguin. Considering DC's struggling to put out quality work, whoever made this, the team behind this, kudos, should be given like huge praise because cinematic work has not been great. But between like this and The Peacemaker, they have knocked out two phenomenal series for HBO and Max that had no right to be nearly as good as they actually were. So, anyway, that's it. That's my recap of The Penguin. I love the audio description. I think Dakota's been doing a great job all season, and I think Ren Leach is still the best man for the job. But I'm gonna give The Penguin season 1, episode 6 an A. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing, and I will be back next week. And see you guys on the other side.